Good evening. Here we are with Dylan's left-handed red Strat. Interesting little beastie this. It's got a Mark Knopfler signature plectrum stuck to the back. It's got loose this, tight that one. It's a nice neck. It's a Korean Squier looking neck, I would say, and it's got a few little interesting things about it. I mean, it's a great looking left-hander. Pickguard is a bit off shape, so it doesn't quite fit, and so what I'm not quite sure about is where to start with this one. It's not massively complex or anything, but left-handers are always interesting for me. Oh, better turn my phone off. Oh, God. Left-handers are always interesting because they're yeah, they're left-handed, so I can't quite get to play them and try them out the way I'd ideally like to. Sorry about the mess in here. I've still got visitors due. Had them the other day and more due, so everything is living in here. So yeah, what have we got? Well, as you can maybe see, we've got a pickguard that doesn't fit the bridge, and so it's sitting up a mile off there. There's a sheared off screw in there which we'll try and get out, and then I've done a bit of an adjustment for the action in the other room just to try it out. There's a few little bits of wear on these frets. They don't look too bad. They are quite narrow, skinny frets, but that's the style, sort of a bit of a vintage thing. So my brief from Dylan is basically I was going to say it's a bit like paint me like you paint your French girl, Jack. That's a bit Titanic specific reference. But Dylan's instruction was set her up like you set up the other two. So of course, never remembering exactly a particular guitar over the others, I just have to go with my normal set of targets, which is what I do each time, kind of thing. So but do it in reverse, obviously, because this thing is back to front. Now, so I'm just going to have a quick look. Now what we've got is, there's a couple of things about this guitar. I'm not sure how, in fact I can see how this neck is sitting in the pocket. It's not sitting particularly well, and so I don't really know what's going to happen as soon as I take this neck off. I'm not even convinced it's sitting flat in there without, maybe there's something in there already. So much as in some ways I would like to just get on and do a sort of fret level here, I feel like until I've taken this apart I'm probably going to be wasting my time. Now this is set, this has got 9s on it, so I think I've just made my decision. I'm not going to attempt to set it up yet. What I'm going to do is take it apart and get to the bottom of reshaping this pickguard, get that sorted out, and just get everything kind of sussed out before we go any further with it. So because I want to make sure the neck is sitting in properly before we do anything else. Now these have got the old Wilkinson's Easy Lock tuners on here, and they kind of they're quite good for if you want to get they've got 2 holes drilled in them, and they can help you to sort of direct the string quite low onto the peg if you want to get a nice low position. So it's worth looking at that when we come to restring it. But this guitar has a couple of string trees on here which are the horrible metallic type, so I think it would be a good idea to replace them, although I'll do the sort of main setup now, but obviously that's going to require a couple of days for them to arrive. But it is one of those things that if you're going to have 2, they do need, really ideally would be tusk string trees, because these are just a bit grotty basically. Okay, so first thing I can do with these strings is I can just put them off to one side a bit, and it's kind of difficult to handle them, but I think I might have got them all through. And then I might go with, yeah, I think I will go with a little piece of tape just to hold them in place so I can do other things. Now, that's the question is, can I do it? Let's pull off a little bit of Gorilla. Not the ideal tape for this sort of thing, but it's what I suddenly had to hand. So if I just put that around there, double it back on there, we can be fairly confident that's just going to hold itself like that. Right. So first things first, we're going to need to get this neck off because it's not sitting right and there's some gaps. Now it may just be that's how somebody's quite correctly aligned it, because the strings were in good alignment. So even if there's, let's get another little piece of tape, just make sure this doesn't just bounce all over the place. Yeah, whoever set it up before, it seems to have aligned it correctly, so that maybe, you know, the positioning of the neck right now represents the correct. Well, it's been set that way because that's how it needs to sit to get the strings aligned. We'll do that again, but right now I just want to see really what's going on in there, because I don't want to go and setting a very low action and then find out that this thing is kind of very crudely shimmed or badly shimmed or something and it needs adjusting. I'd rather take care of that and get the neck sitting the way I want it in the pocket before we get into the sort of very fine action things. Now what I noticed about this is that the first fret action, or the setting of the position or the cut of the nut slots, is very, very low. So again, it looks like somebody's had a go at doing it well, and we got it very low. So at the moment that's playing okay, but it could be, you never know, if we take down the action a bit more at the bridge, it could be too low. So we may be looking at replacing the nut if it is too low. So while I'm at it, I'm also going to take off the covers and stuff, because there's no reason why while we're here why not to give things a good clean up and check over. So there's a couple of holes I could drill here to fit this plate back onto the guitar. Maybe I'll get some idea of what the body is. It's had a sort of custom decal put on, but it's rubbed off, or it's mostly scraped off by now. Okay, so nothing too striking about that. Take the plate off for now. Wiggle out the neck. Okay, no shims or anything. So it has more just basically been positioned pretty well. It doesn't matter if these get a bit tangled, because I can always replace them. So I'm going to remove these knobs, and I was going to do it with this if I can, without. I need a little thing to rest them on, but maybe this will be alright. Wiggle them under there. A little bit of leverage, not too much. Tone, tone and tone. So while I'm at it, I will take this bridge apart anyway, because it needs a good clean up. There you go. But for now I'm more concerned about getting the pickguard cut correctly. Now straight away this is a bit of an ugly affair, so let's assume this is in the right position. Okay, what we'll need to do is we'll need to cut this to make it work, and we can do it with the Dremel. The Dremel's pretty cool for, not for so much the cutting, but it's very good for, we can just wear it down. So if I can just get the start point of this here tape. We're running on this thing. It's steaming up a little bit now. I don't know why, it's probably going to look terrible, but what am I doing? Oh yeah, I'm just going to draw on the plastic. Now I'm making an assumption here that I know what the shape of this thing is here, and I've got a feeling we may have, to get this to fit, we may need to reshape it a bit more, because that would be, so that's obviously got to come further up there, and then that's going to come along further into here like that, which basically slices off the this hole here. So we've got a kind of problem. It either sits up in the air like this, which doesn't look any good, or we have a plan to lose that that hole altogether. Maybe we can fill it. I don't really know if we've got anything spare to do. Got a piece of cream, bit of probably have somewhere kicking about. A little bit of cream plastic. Might be able to fill it. But anyway, so yeah, that's the problem with this. Is it needs a very small amount of reduction. But let's take it off here and see what it's going to require. So I guess somebody's put a. That's already. We'll replace these because they're already worn. Yeah, somebody's put on this pickguard from something else, and it's obviously not the correct fit, but they've made it work. If that's you, Dylan, don't take any offence. These screws are knackered, so they're going to go and get replaced by new ones, which I usually have a fair old supply. Actually, I need to order some more, but normally have enough. Well, currently have enough, I should say. Probably going to run out at some point. Okay, so I'm going to. I don't know why I left the strings on, to be honest, because I'm going to need to take this bridge all to pieces. Okay, so straight off, I can get a better idea of what the overhang problem is here. So the holes have already been. You can't see this very well, sorry, but the holes have already been kind of marked here. So we're sort of stuck with that. But what we can see from this is how much additional shaving we're going to have to do to get rid of that. That will go in there just like that. So we could square this off just up to about there, and then I think we're going to need to cut inwards a small amount here, but not so much as to lose the so much of my bits of paper. So I've got an idea of what I'm doing. I'm going to straighten out that bevel there, and I'm going to cut inwards on there sort of thing. Right, so while I'm at it, I'm just going to, I think I should just probably go ahead and lose these strings to make the job a lot simpler, because we're going to have to go through this whole affair. So first of all, let's get these springs off over there, and let's take a snip and just lose that straight away. Now what have we got? A bit of insulation going on here to cover up the bottom of what? I don't know what's been covered up there. Okay, somebody's trying to insulate something. There's some copper tape in here, so it's been thingied. I'm just going to hopefully remove these. I might use the electric thing. This is, for me, the best way to get in here and clean up everything thoroughly. I like it to be thorough, which is kind of, I suppose, a trademark of mine. Some people think it's OCD. They're probably quite right. Looking at the screw holes on the neck are a little bit worn, but they seem to be still doing their job, so not too big a problem. These are a bit worn. Let's see if I've got any new tremolo screws, but these are starting to knacker the heads. And so I think with me in setups, I'm kind of pretty much unable to just oh yeah, this is a different replacement bridge then. Okay, I've got two sets of 6 holes, so who knows where this has come from, because I don't. Okay, these are knackered too. Let's get rid of some of those. we've got enough here, we've got enough. Let's just cut this for now. It's always easier to just snip it off, and then we can get everything out quite quickly. Okay, we've got mix of things going on. Alright. Right, so there you have it, the internals. So what we've got is a body that's gone through to the other side. It's yeah, sort of Chinese body by the looks of it, make of some kind. It's quite nice, reasonable weight to it, so it's not a balsa wood thing, wutong or whatever the Chinese stuff was. Okay, so now we have the offending thing here. Now what we can do is, first thing is I'm just going to get the Dremel, since I've got this thing ready to go. I'm just going to get the Dremel out and do a little bit of adjustment. So first thing I'm going to do is just flatten this bevel off here. And that's kind of just my way of giving myself a little bit more room there without making the thing look too, that's not what I was looking for, making it look too unusual. And then a little bit of tidying up. Okay, so that gives me a little bit of extra room. And then on this bit I'm going to go in and cut in. Now, was the wrong way. So again, that you can't ever quite get the right curve out of this Dremel, because it's never a small enough one. But you can get close enough in. Probably need a little bit of sandpaper on there now. What's this? 120. Like that. And a little piece of something sticky, like a stick. Okay, this will do. Something I've already got. Oh look, I've already got some sandpaper on that bit. Okay, so I'm just looking at this, and I'm just going to give it a little levelling out. Squint at it. That looks pretty good. Now, put that safely down there. While I'm at it, while we've got all the bits to hand, what I'll do is, I think I will cut these strings, by the way. I said snipping away at them right now. I've got enough to use if I need some spares. These should. Well, they're going to fall out. They should. Of course, they're not going to, because they are thingied. Right, let me just do something else. Let's take this apart so we can at least get the strings out. I'll do that in a sec. So the point was, I just wanted to check the positioning of this. So let's sort of drop everything back into its sort of places. Let's just see what's getting in the way. You can stay out for a minute. So the idea is just to make sure the wires are all, see, they're kind of difficult. You need the wires going down the middle in a straight line so they at least sit in the swimming pool, or the routes that exist in there, and these aren't. They're going all over the place. I think I'll get some little cable ties to try and sort this out in a minute, but what I'm saying is, to begin with, I just want to get these, I'm bleeding on it now, Dill, sorry. Right, let's go back in time. Let's put this off to one side. Let's put those over the scrap pile. Let us get some cable ties to fix this mess problem, because we really can't be doing with stuff going everywhere, because if you do, this is an absolute offence, because if you get it going everywhere, problem is you can't get the thing tucked in tidily. So first one. And snip. So what's all this? Now really, yikes! See, these are very fragile. These are dangerously fragile. That's going to snap off any minute. A bit of a mess here. That's right. I'm going to let it break and I'll attach it again in a second. It's a bit of a mess. Right, so we have a dangling thing here. This is the, I'm not mistaken, this is the red one to the claw. The claw! Right, there's our two out there, and we need to tidy up this pile of stuff here. And that one is going to break off. So let's just help it on its way right now so we can do some tidying. So that's that one there, the neck pickup. Okay, let's try and sort the bleeding bit out first, because I really don't want that on your wires. Okay. Of course, this doesn't make working terribly easy. That should be over and done with shortly. Just whatever. Right, okay, so we have these need to fold double, which they're now doing. This one is all over the place. God. That's caught. That one, for some reason, goes through there, which is an absolute pain. Yikes. I'm not going to totally rewire this. I'm just going to try and do is minimise the amount of stuff going on in all directions, but it's kind of impossible because there is so much stuff going in all directions. See if I can just tack this lot together into a bundle. Okay, keep that out of the way. These wires are very flimsy, I'm afraid. They've been waggled around too much in their time, and I'm a little bit worried about where they're going to end up in a minute. So this one is supposed to be sitting. This is the earth claw, tremolo claw, and I don't like it. It's waggling like it's going to snap off any second. So that is coming off because it just doesn't help. I'm going to cut this short. I'm going to get myself a bit of wire to work with these. Those will be alright, just about. Oh. Thanks. Right. Okay. Oh yes, we've got a sheared off screw to take care of as well. It's one of those. Right, let's give ourselves some new fresh wire to work with for the jack socket. I've got no forefinger to work with now, so that's quite a bit difficult. These are, in my book, these are just a little bit on the flimsy side, these wires. I prefer something a little bit more substantial, but never mind, we have to work with it. Okay, so it's one of those guitars that's sort of part, I suppose it's a Partscaster you'd call it, and it's suffering from a little bit of wear and tear, or quick hasty assembly, I suppose you might call. You know, and putting on non-standard pieces, like for example the bridge and the scratch plate, by the looks of it. Anyway, okay, so that's that. Let's get a bit of clear space on this. This being that one there. In fact, the problem with this is it's got so much wire attached to it that it's bending out and out of the way, so it doesn't need all that wire to do this job, and it's only causing it to buckle and double up. So given that we've only got to reach that lug, let's not have excessively more than we need. I know you'd be saying, why don't you have one of those wire strippers? You know what the answer is? Because I've never been able to make it work for me. These, yuck. So these are a bit mucky. I don't know what they've soaked up in their time, these pickups. I'm maybe not going to busy myself with that too much. Right, now there is something else I wanted to do, which is to round off this pickguard a little bit, because it is a bit of an ugly shape. It's never going to be a perfect shape, because basically somebody's cut it to an imperfect shape. So you can just kind of even it out a little bit. That will help a little bit the way it looks. Beautiful piece of user interface design there. The Dremel always end up pushing it the wrong way. No idea why. We will clean that off in a minute. Don't worry, you're not going to catch anything bad. Okay. Use a little bit of this just to round it off. Let's just try and pretty it up a little bit from before. Add some sense of smoothness to it. I mean, it's not the perfect shape for a Strat neck, but it's a little bit better than it was. Right. Okay, so let's get these little bits of, are they loose? Yeah, it looks like it. Get the little bits of plastic up from under here, which is a horrible phenomenon, which is on so many Strats. So I'm going to plug in my laser beam, my soldering iron, and we need to take care of these few things. Now I'm just going to pull off this excess cellophane, which is a horrible thing to have built up underneath your knobs, if you'll excuse the expression. Your turners, your thingies, whatever it is. Right, that's that. We'll clean that off. Right, so now we have what I think should be a better fitting plate. And with a little bit of the right stuff, that's Martini. A bit 70s advertising for you there, in the very old days. Just get rid of the the what's that stuff called? Permanent marker is what it's called. And you can also get rid of some of the DNA that I left on it. Clean over. Right. Now you don't need to use cellulose thinners like I'm doing here. In fact, it's not the best idea, especially if you're going to be having it near the paintwork, which you don't want. But for plastic, sometimes it's a good substance. Right, now I need to plug in the soldering iron, get that going, and then we'll tin this and this. We'll free up some core on this thing that we're going to use for the tremolo claw. Oh, where's my thumb and finger gone? Tremolo claw earth, and then we'll solder those or heat those off, the original connections off, and make sure they're fresh connections. Okay, what I also would like to do while we're about it, quite stiff plastic wire, I can't do much with that forefinger. So that's cleared. I need to pull off the solder that's in that switch lug there, which is a bit of a mess. All the wiring's a bit of a mess, but it'll take a little while for the thingy to heat up. Soldering iron. So while I'm doing that, let's just now, having moved the various wires, tied them up a little bit, we should be able to get a feel for whether how this sits back in here. That is nearly right, except now this is what it's struggling against. This is not cut for this switch or something. It's probably the pickups actually. Something's preventing this from pushing forward to the place it should do. So it's always under some sort of pressure. Oh, there goes my wire. So that's what's hoiking it up. Not an ideal fit, but let's say that does just about fit with a bit of squish. Then we've adjusted that. Now that fits in perfectly. Yay! Lovely. If you can see that. Ta-da. So that's that. Push that to one side. Pull that out. Put that out the way so it doesn't fall over. Concentrate back on finishing this. What I will do, I've got my little red wire. I will just tighten up these pots as well so they don't go spinning around. That's tight to begin with. That's tight, and this one's gone for a wander all the way around some point in its life. And that's tightened up. Okay. Now, while I'm waiting for that to heat up, it's like those cookery programs. While I'm waiting for that one to cook, let's examine the horrible mess that we've got here. Now, thankfully, I think we've got a bit of space to work with under here, but we have to there's no way of getting that out without getting it out. So, here comes the next part of the game. It's called my small drill. My little drill pony. Probably needs to be a bit more substantial than that. No, let's try that one. So this is my patented Knackered screw removal technique. I don't know how well you can see this. It's called, carefully drilling around the wreckage. Come on. Now, it's a bit of an odd way of doing it, but I've found in the past that once you start drilling down, you can get a clearance around such a ruined stripped screw to the point where you can get a plier or something in and take it out. And we're still underneath the level of the pickguard here, that's a nice thing. So as it gets, I can get a little bit of leverage. It's not really that keen to move yet, but it's going to be weaker in the wood than it was before. What I can't do is get in there with, I can't cut a slot into it or anything like that. So we're kind of a bit limited at the moment to what we can use to try and pull it out. I say pulling out is a bit of a misnomer, because what we have to do is we have to persuade it to come out the way it went in, basically, which is screwed. Now if that doesn't come out, then we can just continue this, and what I might do is go up a slight notch with probably a bit that I don't mind losing. Now you might be thinking, that's too big. You might be thinking, well hang on, if you do this, how the hell are you going to, what are you going to put this next screw in with? And of course what will happen is that if I can get this out, then I'll drill and fill that hole with a piece of wood dowel, and we'll fill it and just provide a footing, a fresh footing for that that screw that should go there in the pickguard. So it might seem a bit odd, but that's kind of gone all the way around it. As you can see, created a little pit around it, and with some, possibly not with that tool, that's a bit knackered, but with a half decent tool, now this thing will be, I think, somewhat loosened now, and it may be persuadable, or may not, to come out. We don't know. Depends how long the thing was in the first place. It could be stuck in there for miles. It's wobbling all right. It's kind of, it's ready to come out. It's in the mood. It's in the mood for turning. I think it seems really silly, but as you can see, I'm actually getting it out. The sheared off screw into the metal reclaim bin. Ding! Now we've got what on the surface looks a bit of a horrible hole, but is absolutely perfectly placed for a replacement bit of dowel to the tune of what do you reckon this is? Sorry, I'm getting the sniffs now because it's a little cold in here. Let's tell you what we got. We got 6 mils. So we want 6. That's kind of what I thought, really. So let's get our 6 mils out. So what we're aiming to do is within the confines of the. I could clamp this down if I thought it was really going to move, but okay, that is actually, it's quite nicely done already. That's the thing. Will I clamp this? Yeah, let's do that just for a split second while the thing is heating up nicely. Basically, I want hand-free to restrain the drill, because the drill is going to want to go flying into the wood shooting down into the wood as far as it can go, and I only want it to go in a little bit, so I'm going to restrain it this way and have it the right way round. Okay, so there we have our new hole drilled inside the footprint of the what's-it, and then we're ready to go with our freshly cut bit of dowel. In fact, we don't really even need to do that, but we will for properness sake. I need a quick tidy in a second. Okay, so this will be, I'll probably need to just sand this down a tiny bit, put that away. I won't bother cutting larger than that. I don't want to go any larger. I'd rather shave down the dowel because we're close to the edge of the pickguard shape, so I'd much rather we stayed within that. We don't want to see outside of it. Okay, so take a little bit of our sandpaper and with a broken bad finger we shave it down a bit if we can, fairly quickly. Another way of doing this is to just literally sand it down with the Dremel if it's already the wrong size. Now I don't want it so big that it's going to end up splitting the wood, right? It's got to have a little space in it. So a bit of no, I've got the wrong tool in there now. A little bit of Dremel would be welcome. Where did I put the Dremel bit? Okay, took it off. Put it down somewhere. Put it down somewhere. And I forgot where I put it. It's not in there, is it? Yes, it is in there. Kind of where you'd expect. Okay, so what I'm going to do very quickly, I hope, is I'm just going to thin this down a little bit. Which side? That side. Okay. It's not exactly scientific. Wrong way again, as always. Check it for size. Might do a little bit more. Towards you to go off. Why is that so difficult? I know, but it seems to be for some reason. Towards me, off. I have to do things 100 times before they become a habit. Right, that's good enough. Now, while I'm at it, what you want to do is get one of your files or something, and if you can, gouge, it's not going to work very well, gouge a sort of slot down the middle a bit. We need it to fill in, but we just need a little bit of room for the glue to come out, because if it doesn't we get stuck with a kind of vacuum. Okay, so here we have a little bit of throwaway sandpaper, a little bit of glue, a toothpick with the end chopped off preferably, and then we go gloop. And then we get the correct end of that, and we put this little fella in there with his escape chute, and then we do a little bit of that, not too much, and then we do a little bit of this, and bin that. Get another bit. Now, this will dry nicely, and we'll have a fill there, and we can then re-drill a hole into that and there'll be no problem at all. So what I also want to do at this point while I'm at it is just to get a bit of a clean up on the surface here. Now I'm in danger at the moment of shoving everything I've got onto the buffer, setting the buffer up outside. So I've got this new buffer which is an absolute thrill to have, because for the first time I can polish lacquer or polish finishes up to a really nice sort of amazing shine, even relatively tired old finishes like this. And if I'm feeling really in the mood, I can get me some of this this number 2, yeah, let's use the number 2 one. I can get me a little bit of this stuff here, and where I see a little bit of gunge around the edge of the bridge, for example, I can use this to just bring it amazingly cleaned up. Now obviously most of this is under wraps, but you can kind of give it a quick go all the way around, and it does make, it's like a quick tea cut, very brief tea cut, and it doesn't use much. It's pretty expensive though, I have to say. Any of you who've used it, is it a Turner Shine or something? All the way from the States, usually. Whether it's actually only can be made there, I don't know, but it's as a result, it's somebody's making a nice little fortune out of it, because it's not cheap. But while we're in this mode, I'm only using a little tiny bit of it, so very frugally applied. It gives us a sort of why not quick spring clean, so the whole thing will just feel a bit fresher. Now when it comes to the pickguard itself, I'll just do some naphtha stuff, the fluid you've just seen me using, the Coleman's cooking fluid. I'm just sort of easing my way around the fresh bit of dowel. Okay, so even not that much time spent gives you a sort of fresh finish. This is not the best cloth in the world. I probably have some new ones over here. Aren't yet chopped up. Probably should be. They fall down. Yes, they did. Nope, that's not good. Right, let's grab that. Right, that's what I wanted. These couple of clean cloths to do exactly this kind of cleaning. But obviously I don't want to use the whole thing at once. So I will try and cut it up into at least 2 bits for a cleaning cloth. Anyway, it's not exactly the right tools. The tin snips, but it's what it does the job eventually. Right. Okay, put that over there, hang that back up out of the way. Soldering iron's still hot for the next job. Right. Okay, nice clean cloth for this bit of a polish up. So I don't know how whether that shows up or not, but that's a much nicer, clean looking paint job. Given that it's not a new guitar and it's not in the best of conditions anyway, but that's quite fire engine-y. And then if we want to, we can carry on. Now that's nicely in. What I'm going to do, just to make life easier to cope with, is I'm going to take this pair of fret end snippers and just do that with a grimace, as you have to. So that means I can basically do that, amongst other things. Now I'm not really that sure about what that is achieving. It's the electrical tape that's now on the floor. So while I'm at it, I can throw that bit of wood away. Yay. Very rare that anything ever goes in. into the pot. Can just do a couple more little dabs of this. Not much. Too much. Right, that's enough for now. So I'll do it down the insides here. There's a couple of spots on this guitar that have cracked the lacquer where the neck's been done on too tight or something, and it kind of would benefit from a small touch-up, which I think we could probably do with some postbox red like this, which I've got on the shelf. And I'm not stopping to do a full-scale repair on this, but it's just a sort of a visual touch-up. Why not while we're at it? This usually this layer of, or this bit of polishing here with this stuff is quite a good nicotine layer remover. Not saying the current owner smokes or anything, but quite often guitars have got a built-up layer from, you know, previous owners and their history. So this stuff is a really good surface, very thin surface layer remover. Okay, well that's kind of a nice quick clean up. It's a bit like cleaning without using soap and water, so going tea cutting rather than washing your car. It's not tea cutting obviously, because it's not really taking any of the finish off, it just takes the grime layer off. Okay, so this is actually now pretty darn shiny. So back into, this is kind of ending up being more of a kind of small refurb than just a setup, but that's what special customers can expect. Right, that's that out of the way. Now we're going to put on the Grandad specs, and while we're at it, something fell down there, wires you must remember to pick up. While I'm at it, I want to clean up this ghastly mess here if I can. Yuck. It goes right the way down onto the ground here, actually it probably grounds out on the lug. I wish I could do that upside down. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Sorry about this. I'm trying to clear this excess solder away. That's it. I don't want it touching or earthing out. This little thing there. Now, let's have a look. Okay, so this white one is going to go through here. It's a solid piece, so we don't have a lot of bending room once it's through. And you go through there and stay there for a minute. And we'll just tack this on. Nice. Okay, and then we just need to tin a couple of these bits. That's the earth wire to the claw to ground the tremolo claw. Tap the iron sometimes like a cigarette butt of old. Okay. Okay. Now I'm hoping that everything else is in good shape. It played in the house. No, there's no disconnects or anything. Right. Okay, let's leave that plugged in for a minute. Okay, that's that out of the way. Okay, so let's now, first of all, having cleaned that up, now let us, we need to reattach. We need to reattach the earth, and that's not a lot of room in here, so let's do it on top of that pot. One has got a lump on it already, but we'll just go off to the side of it. We don't have any congestion, and everything else doesn't fall off while we try and attach this single ground wire, earth wire, earth, wind and wire. Okay, it's always a bit iffy because when you attach a long free dangling wire like this, it's going, by default it sort of gets knocked around quite a bit. Oops. So it's very prone to breaking early. Okay, so that's that grounded on the pot, and that has to go through the hole in the bottom. Ah, right, now I don't want to do this yet. I think I need to do a little bit of work. I was kind of look forward to putting that back on, but let's cut away gently at this stump that we've got sitting here so we can use it sooner rather than later. You could say, well, be patient and let it dry, and you'd be quite right. It's sort of difficult to do because you need an incredibly sharp knife, which right in a second you may have. Well, the only way I'm going to get this done now is with a very sharp knife. I'd like to be able to just put the top, put the pick guard back on and get on with cleaning the bridge and stuff. So rather than leave this standing around to dry, I think if we can just get the bulk of this off. With a bit of careful saw work, we should be able to. It needs to be flush with the paintwork. And you notice that what I'm doing here is I'm cutting from inside the, if you like, the protected zone of the pick guard, so I can afford to, if I make a scrape, it's going to be on the hidden side. And what I'm also doing is I'm curving the blade to make sure it's sort of cutting down at the, only at that area of this exposed stump, shall we say. Okay, now that's going to dry in its own time, but you can see that's nicely flush to the surface, which then means I can cut this excess piece of solder off, which isn't going to help anyone. Get that one through the, actually it doesn't really need to go through there at all, it could go straight through the side, but did it go through the side? There is no hole there, it just goes through that hole there. And this one, now that just goes, right, let's just get this done. You get out of the way, you go through here. I've lost my forefinger for a minute, so this is a bit infuriating. That goes through to there, very lovely, and that goes through under there. It should come out the other side. In fact, both need a bit of help to make sure they stay through. That one there, and this one here. And then push that capacitor back flat so it's not in anyone's way, and then gently waggle everything into its correct place. Now, interestingly, this one is now sitting quite a way back. Why is that? What's getting in its way? Alright, that's not sitting in. Get in there. Okay, the pickup in an odd position. Right, there we go. So we have a piece of raw wood ready to be done. Okay, now I'm going to get some fresh pickguard screws, because if we're going to put this together now, we want it together the best it can be. Pickguard screws, pickup, black mass, strap screws, long pickup screws. Come on. I always find these things hard to find. Gold pickguard, black pickguard, gold, somewhere pickup screws, mixed pickguard screws. I think I've got too many categories and it's blinding me. That's mixed, but there are some new ones in there, so let's take them from there. They were actually surplus. I had too many at one point, and unfortunately it involves chucking them all out. Right, you can now go. Yay! Let's get me some new ones. So new pickguard screws. Yeah. Right. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is put the bulk of these in, and then when they're in, I want to test, make sure the pickups are working. Is that good? That'll do. Take the torque right down to 2. Now with this, you've got to make sure it lines up correctly, because it is a little bit on the pushing side. It's not perfectly designed. Okay, give it 3. Okay, that's good, that will do. So there's a new one in there. Again, it's slightly imperfect, and that's because this is not a good match, this pickguard, by default. Okay. Take it down to 2 again. Okay. So we've got waiting to drill one in future into the new piece of timber, which is neatly hidden underneath the thingy. Pickguard. Okay. Some of these are newer than others, but they're all pretty good. Okay. Everything. Ta-da! Flat, nicely in place. Now, put this chap out of the way, because the next part of the game is this. So I'll put those away for now, but we'll need some more in a little while, because I want to throw most of them away that we took off, because most of them have got the heads knackered. Now, let's take out these bits here. And I'm going to line up these bits in the order they came out, just in case. It's not a bad thing to do. You never know. Sometimes the grub screws on the end ones are smaller, and also sometimes the screws are smaller. Usually they're longer on the outside ones, so you can change that one over. They only need to be smaller as the gap decreases, but actually this is a complete range of different things, so who knows where these would come from. It's just a complete mishmash. A Partscaster, a true Partscaster, but it's got a good neck, and there's no reason why it won't play well. So I'm whizzing through this because it's kind of late and I've got a few long days and put myself say whizzing, I'm kind of obviously taking longer than I would for a normal setup, so it's anything but whizzing. So while I'm at it, let's take this off so I can just, this is actually a bit crooked and these are stripped, these screws, so who knows what this is going to be like. Something tells me they don't quite fit, but it does the job. That one's a bit knackered. Right, so we've got, it's an alloy, sort of pretty much standard, I think, alloy. It feels a bit better than the usual alloy, a little bit heavier, but I could be wrong. Anyway, I'm trying to push out these little thingies. They're known as strings, and frankly I should have, there you go, I should have kind of pushed them out before. We'll get there. Yes. So it's an interesting time at the moment because I've got another job on the go, which is doing some work for my sister, which is a pretty cool thing to be able to do. Come on, out you come. And so I'm sort of dividing up my time between reloved guitars and that. Probably done more reloved guitars than that for up to this point, but is that all out? That's all out. Right, let's throw these bits into the metal recycle department. Okay. Right, so what we have is an absolutely filthy thing here, which is really manky and nasty, but we can help it along with two things: a bit of the old sauce, which helps to just take a layer of grime off before we do anything else. I mean, that really is, who knows what's alive in there? I don't. That's going in the bin. And then we get another bit of this stuff, and we can use a bit of the old Autosol. This is the only one I ever bought so far, so I think we're in the market for another tube of Autosol at some point in the not too distant future. But I think it'll be fairly good economy to have got 4 years into reloved guitars on my first tube of Autosol. I mean, it's not something I use often, and it's a bit like Marmite, you know, you don't have to use hardly any to get the job done. So you see this crud coming off here. It's probably, this is either water damage or extensive nicotine damage. Probably the latter. Anyway, so that and that. And then another piece of the old Blitz. Actually, no, I'll do this. One piece for blowing the nose, and another piece for cleaning up the plate. And this means we end up with something that's half decent to start off again. Not that easy to hold on to once you've taken the block off, actually, but there we are. So that's the tremolo, muchly cleaned up from what it was, as you can see now. Hooray! What we can now do is put this back on, although you can say it's a, are we on the right side? No, it's the opposite side. It's a lefty, isn't it? Let's go to the outside. Right, I've lost any sense of dexterity. Oh, I can't do anything. Right, that. Okay, line those up, and we should be alright. He said not even be able to get the darn thing in there. Right, much cleaner. And then, oh, this one's screwed, but it's do the job. And I'll put a little bit more torque on and then just tighten them up. Okay, so there we have the much shinier bridge. That's still a bit gunky down there, but what I'd also want to do at this point, missed, is to give, don't mind I blew my nose there, but nobody cares, it's going to have antiseptic swabbings on it. Well, that's just a bit of grime come off. Okay, so that's there. This is this. Now what I would do next is even a fiddlier little thing, but again makes a hell of a difference, is just give each one of these an all-round clean up. 4 sides, top and bottom, I suppose. Why not? And again, there's nothing like cleaning up the bridge to give you a sense of a new guitar or a fresh guitar. Everything else can be the same, but you get a clean up like this and it feels a different thing altogether. Okay, got some real grime. Some of the, I don't know if you might have seen a recent video of a standard series Strat that I set up, and it had sat in a, I guess maybe in a basement or a damp house for quite some time, and so some of the screws had, well actually more importantly the grub screws in this kind of saddle had seized in place. Not on all of them, but just one or two. They were rusted into place and there was no hope of getting them out, so I had to buy a new bridge, or a nearly new bridge, and cobble together. Actually, it was a bridge that was somebody had bought, a set of saddles somebody had bought to use just 2 pieces, a spring and a screw, and the rest they hadn't used at all. So with the sort of contents of the 2 sets, I was able to put together a completely new one, which was absolutely fine. But it's amazing how much damage damp can do over time to screws, including, and what you typically find is, although it wasn't the case with that one on this guitar, but on guitars that have been in the damp for a long time, you can find yourself with lots of sheared off pickguard screws buried, you know, with the screw body buried in the timber, rotting away, so you have to kind of dig them out. Okay, so that was the fiddly bit of that done, and so what I'm going to do now is put together the same things. I've moved some of the springs around just slightly because we want the shortest ones in a certain place. Okay, so the idea is just then to reassemble the bridge, this time now a lot cleaner, fresher than it was before. It's not going to perform much differently at all, but it's a nice, you know, it's a nice clean up, especially when the rest of the guitar is getting lots of little improvements at the same time. The whole thing adds up to feeling and looking a lot better than it did. Now you may notice that I'm putting these saddles back on in a kind of traditional staggered pattern of 3. What's in the way there? Is that a screw in the way? No, it's okay. I'm doing it in a staggered pattern of 3 and 3, or 2 groups of 3 I should say, and that's typically how it will intonate on a guitar when you have 3 wound and 3 plain strings. Changes if you've got a wound G. I think somebody was joking in a forum somewhere about having a wound B on one of their guitars. Wow. That would be quite some gauge, I can tell you. Right, so you can see this thing's glinting all over the place, which it wasn't before, so it's lost a load of its prehistoric DNA, and I guess what I'm going to do is stop tonight at the point where the majority of it is back together, and tomorrow evening, I guess, a bit later than I had planned, but tomorrow evening will be the actual setup on it. Okay, so everything looking good so far. Get these back in here, switch. Now these are all okay, these tremolo screws. They're not fantastic, but they'll do. So just get them. Those, when you're putting those back in, just be careful not to screw them all the way in to begin with, because you want them to float up a little bit, and if you do them all the way in, they'll tip the tremolo forward on its beveled edge, which is not what you want. And I tend to go end to end first. And then fill in. Okay, that's a little bit of contact with the tremolo, the pickguard. In fact, what I would suggest to Dill, if you were going to use this with the tremolo at all, that you do need a little bit more scraping to just widen that little hole. It's only a minor thing, but I think, unless I'm totally mistaken, I think we're going with effectively a hard tail. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just holding the plate and tightening these down until they touch, or they're near touching, but they're not lifting the back end of the tremolo plate. If they lift the back end, we've gone too far. So, okay, that's fine. There we go. Right, so now I'm assuming, don't ever assume anything, I'm assuming that this is going to work. So let's do this bit first. Let's get the earth back on, the tremolo claw earth. I always find this bit quite difficult to do. For some reason the trem claw does that, and it also, it's like a heat sink, so it's quite, I find it quite hard to heat up enough to get a good contact. On the previous guitar I did, the previous Strat, the last Strat, the American Standard series, I set it in the floating mode with the Galeazzo Freddua method. I never know how to, I'm not Italian, so I can't pronounce his name, but it's a very, very elegant and sensible way of doing it. I highly recommend. Come on, heat up and get stuck. Thank you, that's that bit. Tuck that down. Actually, tuck it inside of there. Not going to hurt anybody. Now we can attach the springs back on, and the purpose of the springs right now are to hold the bridge effectively in a hard-tailed position. Why is that not going the right way? Don't. Spinning round. I like it like this. In. Okay. That's probably not the best of ideas ever invented. I don't really want this in there. Well, if we do, we want it out of the way of this hooky bit. Thank you. Okay, so we've only got we've got 4 springs to play with. So I'll put them on like that. Leave one in the middle done. Okay. So there's our bridge, hard-tailed. Here's our jack socket. Now I'm just going to again hoist this out of the way. We'll go as if nothing else is wrong. I'm assuming sometimes it's worth, before you put this together, sometimes that's a bit loose. Sometimes it's worth checking your wiring before you put this back on, because it just gets a faff if you have to go and do anything else and take this right off. But I'm kind of hoping that I've cleared up any issues as we went there, but I could be over optimistic. I just want to loosen off this bit here, go away, and then we'll clear off the old stuff. Get these horrible furry bits of wire stuck to everything sometimes. It just doesn't want to come off. Until you get to about, and it's still got a mouthful of furry wire. It's all hooked over. And you got nothing to grab it with. Sorry, this is really boring, I know, but let's try and pull this out now. Dykes, get out. Thank you. Right, let's get this one out. Right, straight through. Okay, so two things. One is this is a bit mucky too, so let's get this clean up while we're at it, and then I'll tighten it up. Jack sockets have notorious for going wrong, and it's one of those weird ones. You kind of would ask yourself, how can they go wrong? What is there to go wrong? They're so simple, and yet something in them can come undone, and they can end up with a situation where they start sort of intermittently cutting out when you rock the jack plug, which of course is all the time if you move them around. Right, so that's in the right position. Now what I want to do is tighten this up. But of course, as you can see, this is now got this style, what's that word, nut, which of course doesn't want to do anything with a pair of pliers. So let's work with that. That's probably okay. It's ideal, not ideal, it's probably better than that's down the bottom, but I think we'll be alright. So we'll look at it. It's not going to get in the way of anything. Okay, some jet plane going by. Right, let's move the knobs out of the way. Let's move these metal things out of the way. Let's put this back down on here, and then come round at it from about here. So we have, funny to hear a plane at this time of night. Let's go with the live first. Don't forget, I'll need two new pickguard screws for this arrangement too. Now, this is burning a bit of rubber here, which I would prefer not to have done, but it's going to hold it in place. Snip off the excess. Just check that. Yeah, that's good. Then we'll come up underneath with this earth one to the centre. And I'll tell you something, this is, I mentioned this on a post on Facebook, one of the guitar groups I'm on, but somebody had gone wrong in their wiring, and they weren't getting anything out of the wiring they'd just done. And one of the things I recommended them to do was to double check the wiring of the jack plug for kind of just basic black and white logic, because I'm amazed how many times I've wired it back to front. Now of course you can only get it 50% wrong, or completely wrong. So the hot is the outside one, the common, the earth, is down the centre. Right, that's right, that's how it should be. Okay, and then we tuck this back under there, we plop that on there, and we go. Where's our... Okay, so that, damn, that is annoying. Because what happens is, that gets in the way of that sitting. Damn, I do hate this. Turn it round, it will turn round, but it's a pain. There you go. Right, 2 of these, new ones please. New screws please. A bit, driver bit. Thank you. So, just in our minds we say we've done the earth to the tremolo claw. We have done we redid the breaking off faulty or ropey neck pickup to the switch. We redid that. Now we have put the jack socket back on. Wow, look at this. What a beaut. Now, technically, this should now play, and I should be able to turn the soldering iron off. And what I would then do is put the neck back on, I think, and leave it the rest for tomorrow. Maybe not even put the neck back on. It might be worth just leaving that. Let's see now. Noises, please. Noises. Okay, bridge. What volume? Am I in the right direction? No. Is this working down here? Yep. Ah, interesting. Nothing. What's wrong with this? See? So this is the annoying bit, because we've got something in here that isn't going, and it could be grounding out on something because of this plate not being the right plate. So this is really I could have done without. Let's go back in time. So this is kind of a bit that, oh yeah, it makes sense to go and double check everything. Right, we're going earth to the core, or cold ground to the core in the centre there. Ground, yes, that should be correct. That bit is correct. Trouble is, to take everything else apart, we might have to take everything else apart. Now I don't know whether that jack socket is working or not. That actually could be broken in its own right. So let's take these out now and see if there's anything obvious that's disconnected. Dead one. I shouldn't use that. Okay, so the question is, what is undone in this mix here? Okay, what is undone? What is grounding out on what? Damn it. That's on. That's okay. Are we missing a joiner across from there? 1, 2, 3. Ah, no, I don't know. That's on, that's on. Is that on? That's on. That's on. That's on. what that is, or why. That's a jumper across to there. Who would know? Holy moly. Right, so now I'm going to have to try and get it to make a noise with the back off like this. See, I don't know, I don't even know if it's this, there's a problem. That doesn't feel right. I don't think that's right. This is mostly annoying. Right. Let's assume that it doesn't feel right because it's not right. Luckily I have got a bunch of new jack sockets because I think this is knackered. Right, let's take this off. That just didn't feel right for some reason. Let's try it freehand. Down, 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 down. Something about this I don't like. Let's go halfway, halfway and halfway. Right, this is not great. It's always the way. So now I've got a situation where I have to try and take this, or deconstruct this and find out what's not right. And I don't like being in that position because it's quite frankly a pain. What I'm missing from this diagram here is a jumper on Strats. There's usually a jumper, if I'm not mistaken, across these two. Could that have come out? Let's see. Let's see. That'll work. Let's use this instead of my teeth. Okay, so what if we have 1, 2 goes across. As you can't tell, I'm just going to do a quick check because I think there's a jumper missing here. Those two, that should be jumped to this one. I think that's what we've got wrong here, and that may have come off in the glut of the big pile of stuff. Let's just, I'm going to do it. I'm going to jump it across just for good measure because I think that's what belongs there. And if not, I'll take it off, but I'm pretty certain that's the normal order of things here in this world. No, I could be wrong. So what's the organisation of this one then? Okay, you ain't that. That ain't the way it is. Okay, you are good, you are not. You are, they are messy, that's my worry about this. Me about that. Why is that not? Well, something isn't right in Strat City. I'm going to get my diagram up, but I need my internet. Hold on. It's the jack socket, of course. Should have known. Weakest link, often the weakest link. Right. Got a quick fly replacement here. Right, where are we? Let's get rid of this piece of junk. Whatever's wrong with it, it's going in the bin. Bye bye. You're not happy, you're not staying around. I'll keep the screws, but that can go in the metal department. Right, well, so much faffing about from one little thing. But that's the way to do it, is get the little, whatchamacallits out. You know those things. Test wires, tester wires, so you can hook the thing up without going through all the hassle of soldering it. And of course, you can find out then, like I just did, that it's the jack socket that's broken, and then you can quickly get lined up to replace it and get back on track. I can never quite work out which way around this has to go. It's best to go. I think I sometimes get it wrong. Where's my... Yeah. Why do I not want it that way? It should go that way. It's much more sensible. Should go that way, I reckon. Right, I'm just going to do this up, followed by soldering it again. Well, soldering it. Right, you can come away, and I've got to tin these new bits of wire. Lucky I've got the soldering iron still going. Get those out of the way, get this out of the way, get that over here. So it's held me up for a bit, but we should be back on track. Sorry about that. I had to. What's interesting in looking at this, I did have a quick consultation with the internet, and as I was looking, I realised that this this switch in this guitar has only got 7 lugs, which I've not seen before. Maybe quite simple, but I haven't seen it before, which is just weird. Why 7 instead of 8? So that's why I was expecting to see, well I kind of missed the joiner lug thing, but there isn't one because it's only 7 lugs. Now here's something. While I was at it, no, I'm not going to, because we're not setting this in motion. That's fine. It doesn't have to. If we'd been going to use the tremolo, I would have gone ahead and done the little bit of business there with sanding a bit of extra space. But we're not. We are keeping it simple. Let's get this one in for now. Right, let's get this soldered up and back into place and tested quickly. Now we're starting to run out of room, having had to cut it a few times now, which is a bit annoying. What we really want to do is to get this in place, and we want, it's not ideal, we kind of want it to come from there and there, so it means having that sat on there perhaps, not like that. it's late. It's late and I need to go and get something to eat. Right, you get in there now, Mr. Central Earth. Central Earth. Let's go into there. Like that. Give it a bit of a bend. And we come round to the other side. You're on, you're on. You're on, you're on. And then you come forward a bit. This is a very, God, it's a horribly fine wire. Makes me nervous. Okay, hold that there somewhat. Okay, this should get us back on the road to nowhere. Should hold it. We are there. 2 screws. Let's do it up. Let's close the patient up and try it. How annoying. Little things like that is always the way. This in a way, we were probably lucky that it wasn't more things, because the joints on the most of the lugs and stuff were really weak. I've done it upside. That's. Oh. Do you know what? Remember I said I keep catching myself out this way. I say, which way up should it go? And then I go and do it the opposite way. And I do it the way that it can't open up because it's jammed out of the way. So that can't push any further, so it has to be the other way round. Let's see if I can just spin this round like that. And so it's at the bottom now. That's where it should have been, Sam. Yes, Sam. Like you knew all along, but you didn't trust yourself. Right, now can you just do this up? Oh, no, thank you. The wire's tucked away. Now, will this work, please? Bottom. It has to be at the bottom, because the thing has to expand as the jack goes in. And if it's at the top, it's out of the way, and it looks tidy when you put it in, but it doesn't work because it can't open out of the way. As any fool knows. How many times have I done this? Only a few. Right. Now what I'd like to hear, so I can go in and call it a day, so I'd like to hear some noises. Thank you. That, ladies and gentlemen, is called annoying. So just real life, you know, you never get it right the first time. Okay, but what we have now is we have a nicely cleaned up Strat pickguard sitting properly, bridge cleaned up, a couple of dodgy connections inside replaced, and oh look, we should be ready to put a screw in there now while we're at it. So what we'll do, we'll just fill in these fresh ones, and one more down here. here, which of course we have to do a quick thing for too, and that thing is, you guessed it, let's give it a pilot hole, and then that bit will be done. Now, I've been taking so long doing everything else, shouldn't be a problem. Now, let's take one of these, and let's go. Lovely. Ta-da! Gorgeous. Right, that's it. Well, it's not quite it. I'll leave that off because I will want to, when the time is right, where's it gone? It's over here. When the time is right, I'm going to want to make sure the strings go on properly. But while we're at it, let's make a mark so we can have all 6 screw holes. Now I know there's a lot of holes in here already, and you could say it's gratuitous, but hey, what the heck? We want one in there. If you're gonna have a cover, you might as well have it doing its thing right now. Right, so there's your hole, and there's your hole. So, go back to our friend here. There's a hole. Let's just double check that. So one up the top here. Yep, there. One there, and then one there. Yeah, lovely. Right, leave those for now. Put that away for now. Turn off the thing for now. Is that the soldering iron off? Yes. Okay, so we had no shims or anything, and from the action, as far as I could see, it was pretty good from the outset. Now the only thing that we won't know at this point in time is the alignment of the strings. If we put the net back on now, then we may well have to do something else. Now this is not fantastic up here, but it's how the guitar is, and I'm probably not in the market for redoing it at this point in time. So let's have a feel. That does sit in pretty well actually. So let's get this back in place, and then we can come back tomorrow and be ready to do our thing. Alternatively, not really. Now I was going to suggest touching up those cracks with paint, but the problem with that is they've cracked because it's a tight joint, and so it may well do the same thing again. I would prefer to do it with the neck on and the bolts all done up. So just locating them first. And then we'll do a bit more torque in a minute when it's in place. It seems to go back to the same place it was before, which is quite convenient. So it sits where it needs to sit. I don't think we'll have any alignment problems anyway. Okay, so there's our alignment. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Alright, so we have that bit taken care of. Ta-da! And then we can also then give this a clean down. Right, and put the selector tip back on here. Do as you're told. It's always, I hate pressing a selector tip onto something when you know that it's it's pushing against the innards of a switch. Okay, so which way am I doing it? On, off, on, off, 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 off. Two of these are different from the other one. So we're saying volume 0 there, or 1 there. And we're going to say tone in the same place. Yeah, the tones are one type of pot and the volumes are another. Quite what, I don't know, but that one there. And this one. It's all very strange when you're doing left-handed things. Right, there we have it. Okay, so we're back together in the place we were before. This needs tightening up, so before I do anything else, why don't I just take care of that if possible. Let's see if it will do up or whether we've got a worn out situation and will we need some other. Yeah, we're worn out. It's official. Right. A simpler way around this is to replace that with a slightly bigger, which I have, slightly bigger. Oh, that's very small. Yeah, we should be able to do that. Strap pins, strap screws, one that's bigger than that, please. Strap screw bigger than that. Yep, quite a bit bigger. That'll do. So that kind of overcomes the problem. Gives you a bit of lease of life. Yeah, that'll go in. That's all the way in. Very good. Probably might be worth doing the same at the other end. But let's see. It's always the way, with something of a certain age, you always reach a point where it needs a bigger screw or it needs filling, drilling and filling and drilling. But this should be alright. It's actually, you know what, I'm going to replace the felt as well because it's just worn out and old. Felt. Anyone? Felt. Small washers. No. Where's the felts gone? No way. Strap on the felts. Okay, we're starting to run out. So this is white, but it's a new one. Looks a bit tidier. Okay, so in we go. Make sure I've got a purchase. Lovely. I think it's probably a good time to do the other one since that's worn out. I mean, it's a bit knackered looking as well, so why not? Again, a bit of a spindly one with a worn out felt. So let's bin that. Go cut another felt. Got it. Strap screws. So my little OCD box comes in handy. There we are. That's not going to work. Do that and then that. Thank you. Okay. Come on, sit on there properly. Come on, you're a... Wait a minute, that's supposed to be a... Is that a different one? I seem to have switched from a posi drive to an ordinary one, right? Okay. What the heck? Alright, two freshly attached buttons, all nicely done. These two things, false economies, they're going in the bin. No point holding on to them. Worst thing you can ever do is try and reuse them because they'll strip something and break something. Right, those are done. This one can come off there, that can hang up there. I'm ready for setup tomorrow. Hey, what's this? This is the old refurbished Aristo cap that's going to go onto the red Strat over there, but I need to hang this out the way. So that's me done for this session, Dill. As you can see, nothing's ever completely straightforward. Funny, you know, I was kind of in that mode of talking about how I'd recommend it to somebody to check the strap button because it's so easy to wire it up back to front, you know, a human error. And in this case it was the strap button again, but it wasn't wired back to front, it was just faulty. It was old and faulty. So thankfully that's that taken care of, and let's just dangle that from there for now. Come back to that. Okay, all good for now. See you tomorrow for the next part, which will be the setup, including the Dean Markley strings. These metal coated, they're covered, so I can leave them out here. I don't like leaving out ones that live in paper bags because they absorb too much moisture for my liking. Right, that's that done for today. Tired, knackered, going in. See you in the next section. Now I thought for once I'll put you on this little stand because actually it's kind of easier. I don't know why I have had such a big contraption before. Anyway, you're on this little stand, which means I can move you around and vary the camera angle because I'm conscious that the camera sits there for hours on end, just like you do, poor viewer. Anyway, right, welcome back to the world of you. The world of you. The world of Dylan's slightly grubby, but rapidly improving Stratocaster, Partscaster, and it's got a bit of, I don't know, grease or some. I forgot to order the. Right, I have to order the. Yeah, these things, string trees. I've got some better ones actually, which I can replace, even though they're not tusk. I've got some hand recycled tusk ones you can have for free. Anyway. Right, so what we've got here is the Strat requiring setup, and we are in what condition is it? Well, it's all good now because we've got it working, but the challenge is going to be to get the setup just right. So Dylan reported a little bit of buzzing on some of the frets, so I really don't know much about that just now, but what I do know is, let's get raise these up, give me a chance to clean them a bit. Yeah, so we'll get this strung with some sacrificial strings. We'll set a really nice low action and we'll take it from there, okay, and we'll just see what we can do. Now on these pickups we do have some quite mega gunge, and I want to try and just clean it off without soaking the whole thing. It's not actually that easy to do because the solvent's going to want to try and run down inside if I use too much of it at one go. So I'm just trying to be careful. Let's see if we can. It's coming off. That's good. It's a bit on the grubby side. It's like somebody's either chucked a cup of coffee in there at some point, or somebody's had too much beer and been a little ill down the side of the pickups. But either which way, they're cleaning up nicely so we can forget all about it. See, now here you are, you can have a better look. Now you're mobile. Now these I don't think will sit up this high anyway, so once I've cleaned the bulk of this DNA goop off here, then I think we'll be able to lower them and lose any last bits of slime below the waterline, shall we say. I've got an interesting little change to do on my red Strat. I was thinking of some bridges to put on my red, what I'm calling Phoenix guitar, which is a Marlin that basically was on its way to the, like a lot of things, was on its way to the burner, and when I took pity on it, and decided to basically give it a new lease of life. So what I've done is I've got another neck for it, courtesy of Ralph. Very kindly donated a spare, what was it? It was an Affinity CBS style big headstock neck from an Affinity, probably a reasonably old Affinity Squier Strat, but I reshaped that into a more of a sort of 60s Fender era, or pre-CBS era shape, and so it's quite a nice looking thing. But I was thinking about getting, or what bridge to get for it, because the original one is just no good. So I was kind of lining up to get me a, lining up to get me a slightly nicer bridge, like a 52. I'll come back the other way. Come on, 50. This thing seems to want to come out of its covers. Yep, that's what's happening. The covers are sticking for some reason. Right, let's hold the covers in place and wind up the pickup. There you go. Yeah, so I was going to replace it with a fairly decent high mass bridge, but they're not a common thing because they're the 52mm. So I think most of the time you either have to go to somewhere like Guitar Fetish, or you may have to. The only other alternatives I think is AliExpress or somewhere like that. But anyway, I found. I can't remember who it was now. I found one, and it's a nice black one, and I bought it. And actually, what I realised is that instead of putting it on the Phoenix guitar, which really I didn't want to spend much money on, I just wanted to put time and quite a bit of love and effort into the neck. That was my focus really. Wherever that neck's gone now. Oh, there it is. Yeah, which I've done, and it's just a beautiful refretted neck. But I didn't want to spend too much on any of the other bits, so I'm going to keep that new bridge and put it on my red Strat, my Partscaster that I play with, and I'm going to take the bridge off that and put it onto this Phoenix guitar, as I'm calling it, from the ashes, because I think that's probably, I should get the quality bit, not the owner of a new Phoenix from the flames, or whatever they say. Right, I'm just throwing something on the floor. Strat 9s. Okay, this will do. I think it will do. Don't know how long these have been kicking around. Look, I've even taken the trouble to straighten them out. So that's usually the biggest challenge when you're trying to reuse sacrificial strings like this, is that you have an original kink in the strings, which can make getting through the tremolo block, as you see here, a bit problematic. But I'm hoping, don't get caught out. You know, you've got to go the opposite way, Sam. Come on, wakey wakey. It's a lefty. Yay. Right, so anyway, let's carry on with this, and we'll restring this with our sacrificials. But before I put them through the tuners, what I'm going to do is I'll paint the frets pre-fret level colour, aka black marker pen, and then we'll be ready to do the fret leveling. And I'll also, once I put the strings on and painted the frets, we'll also just check the action and set it to as low as we want it for our purposes, which, if I remember from the other ones I've done, is my standard low action. So it's, like I said in the last bit, it's quite difficult to remember any particular person's guitar. I mean, I remember their guitars, but it's quite hard to remember. It would be hard to remember different action settings, but thankfully most customers settle for the action that I aim for, which is basically the low and fast, which is 1.5mm at the last fret, and on the low E, and about 1.2 if we can get there on the high E. Now this one is going to be a ball ache tonight. I to get on because it is coiled, and it's a 9 and it's coiled to hell. So I'm going to cut it off. But if we don't get that to the right, if that doesn't go all the way to the length, which judging by this it won't, I just give up at this point and I'm going to fish out a spare. Might as well chuck on a new spare, because we're never going to reach. The problem with the coiling wire is you just never reach the top tuner with a salvaged the salvaged old one. So let's just go with a new spare, which we know we've got the full length available to us. Otherwise it's just wasting time. It won't happen. Physics says it won't happen. Okay, hey, I wonder what the view's like in this new groovy camera angle. Right, put that there, put that there. While I was at it just a bit earlier, I fished out all the, or chucked out all the crappy pickguard screws and put on decent. I've got a set of decent ones out there so that we can go. Oh, look, it goes and writes marker pen on the bloody board straight away. Samuel, get with it. These are low, quite low, thin frets, so I'm going to need to be very precise about this, as always, but in particular, because we don't have a lot of leeway. There's a bit of flattening because they've been done before somewhere in their life, so that it's kind of, yeah, it's precision. This is where the precision bit comes into its own, or is really important, because if you were doing this with a leveling beam, I wouldn't be confident at all of ending up with any much fret metal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shove these. Let's just check something. Right, are these loose? No, they seem to be all right. I'm going to go into the lowest setting on here, because I want to try and keep the strings going naturally as low as possible without necessarily having to rely straight away on the... This is one of the things that I haven't worked out, and forgive me if it sounds completely stupid, but when you put strings on the left-hander, I don't actually know. First of all, I don't actually yet know whether there is such a thing as a left-handed tuner, meaning on a guitar where I've made one, for example. I sold a left-handed Oakcaster the other day, and from the day I made it, I've just used a set of 3 side tuners on the Oakcaster headstock, and just thinking back to it, I kind of was putting the strings on, new strings on, and I was winding it up, doing whatever I do with it, and suddenly it occurred to me, have I just got this completely back to front? Because not being a left-handed player, I can't really sort of sit down and start winding up as if I was a left-hander, because I don't know what the correct feel is. So I didn't even know how to even start asking the question, apart from getting a left-handed, let's say Les Paul style guitar to compare the direction that you turn the things in. So it could be that I've sent out my one and only left-handed Oakcaster with a reverse set of tuners on it. Somebody help me out. I mean, I don't think I'm being completely dense, right? Because if you haven't used it before and you're not a left-hander, why would you know? And if you want to be really snarky about it, you go and try and find out on Google. Try and figure out what you would type in there to find the truth on the matter, because I can't imagine what it would be. Maybe the only thing you could do is go into a so-called expert forum and ask somebody, and then look even stupider and get a load of conflicting answers. I don't know, but anyway, it just occurred to me that I was completely in the dark. It's one of those things, until you have to stop and think about it, you don't stop and think about. Anyway, one of the things, Dill, just for your info, if you're using these Easy Lock Wilkinson things with the 2 holes in each post, I don't use them as the Easy Lock part of it. To be honest, they're great on the lower fat strings, but they give you a false sense of security, and the idea that you sort of push the string through and you double back through the other hole actually has led me to quite a bit of trouble in the past, because if you think that that wind back thing is going to hold the string on the bare strings, you're in for a shock, because it won't. And the result was that I ended up with strings slipping off. So I don't mind them. I like them as tuners generally, but I always just as a habit now, I only ever use the bottom of the two, and I quite like that because it does give me a lower down position, which for my oak casters is quite good, because it means on my oak caster headstocks I can get away without using a string bar or string tree, you know, or several strings at once string tree. So that's just a kind of personal preference or convenience, so that's why I use them a lot. Or put another way, if I had a choice between standard tuners with 19:1 ratio or these easy lock tuners, I think I'd still go for the easy lock, because their bottom hole, excuse the expression, their bottom hole is actually slightly lower. I think, I could be wrong, but I think it's slightly lower than your standard hole on a standard tuner with only one hole in the post. Anyway, right, so that's over first and then under. I'm doing this kind of tidily. Now, what the hell happened there? That jumped. How did that jump? Who bleeding knows? Anyway, so let's get this all on for now. So the bit we're on now is going to be focused on setting the action. So we've got our sacrificial strings on. They're not too bad condition anyway, but they're going to be for the chop, as we should say. Okay. Now, left-handed, it's a funny world. So what I'll do just for now is let's just get the bulk of the slack out of these strings, just so they'll kind of mostly stay in tune. Now I just went and bought, oh god, I'm so sorry, somebody said, made a comment this yesterday on YouTube. Why am I doing this? I just need a note. They said, for God's sakes, I like the way you tune up the guitar, but the 8th time please get a clip-on tuner. So I bought one. It's in the house on my acoustic, where it belongs really. Oh, where are the keys gone? Now some people have got a bit iffy about this. This is a, you know, not a brilliant tuning method, the harmonic, relative harmonic, and of course it's not a brilliant method particularly, and I certainly don't use it when I'm out playing with other people. I always have an inline tuner going, but the critics of this method need to remember that the reason why I'm tuning now is not to be in perfect tune with anything. It's to have the neck loaded close to playing conditions. Which it is now. So I'm not really that bothered about the absolute tuningness of it. So it's just worth keeping that in mind before you get all frothy about the method. And all the way through this setup process, I'm only ever tuning, at this point in the game, I'm only ever tuning to get to the ideal tension for the setup. Okay, so we have right now, we have the 1.5, we have over 1.5, a bit too much, down a bit. have too much over. Then this one is behaving strangely. That's better. Still over. So as we get down towards the treble side, I want to be kind of going in a slight gradient, so we don't want to be at 1.5 on the D string really. I want to be heading towards a little bit lower than that. And then on the G, oh, I'm miles high at the moment. Right, this is the end of that is a little stripped off, so I need to I need something that's newer, like one of these little stainless steel ones. If I can get it out with my klutzy fingers. You know what, I can't. It's resisting my attempts. Get out. Thank you. Remember, I have the amp still on. Right. Okay, so I'm going to just do a little quick bit of visual tweaking here so I know where I am at. This is very low, so on this action we are kind of right down, not on the stops, but we're heading towards the stops for this low action. Okay, let's just do a numbers check on these last few bits. We have still too high. Okay, 1.5, still too high. So we're almost about, well, we're soon going to run out of adjustment, but not quite. A little bit of way to go. So this is important because this will set the target for what I'm aiming for in the setup. Okay, that's good. These two still need to come down. That one. I think we're about there. Right. Now, the reason I left the tuner on now is so I can just get one more tune out of it. Right, this is the action I'm going to aim for. This is my sort of classic. Hey, hello there camera, you still running? I can do this now. Yeah, I can see you running. Very good. Here's my nice low action. Now, the question I want to answer right now is what notes, if any, are struggling? Not bad. Okay. Little struggle on the G. Let's just check again how low the G actually is at this point. Okay, the G is just under. It's a little bit low actually. It's just on 1, but it needs to be a fraction more than that. So I've dropped down a tiny bit too low there. These things are not ultra scientific, these little saddles. They're a bit on the clunky side. So one of the things you can do while you're doing this is to kind of eyeball across the strings to see which are where in relation to each other. Obviously if we're trying to measure the height here, just 1.5, 0.5 there. Yeah, you can, when you eyeball the strings across, you can sort of see how they look, even take into account the radius curve, and you can quite quickly see the ones that are too close to the other ones, or the ones that are too far away by being too low in the sort of overall curve. So I'm just now paying attention to that now. That feels about right. Feels and looks about right. Okay, so I'll just double check the tuning again. Just be in the right sort of ballpark. Okay, turn off that thing. Right, so at the action I want, now the challenge is, what are the notes doing? Not bad. Bit buzzy on the G all the way. Interesting. Well, I've got to say, this by and large is pretty good as is, right? But I hear what Dylan's telling me. And there is a bit of, it's mainly on the G, and that might be, I can't remember if that's what Dill said, but mainly on the G. So I'm going to give it a little going over in the time-honoured tradition. Oh no, where have you gone? Hang on a minute. Please tell me if it's around here somewhere. I've moved a few things around, but I don't want to lose anything. No. There's too much dust up here as well. I don't want to end up choking to death looking for it. There's an evil creature up on the top there. Since you're portable, I could show you up there and show you up. I could show you up there so you could see the monster that's at the top. Hold on. I found it the other day. It's the katana, the little brother of the banana, the humble, legendary, mighty banana. The katana is has lived up there ever since it got banished in a state of something or other. Right. So, ooh, it's back to front. Hey, I don't know what I'm doing. So we're going to do it backwards, ladies and gentlemen. How is our sandpaper here? Let's have a quick feel. nearly due for renewal. Is it? Yeah, we got a bit left. That's good. I think I'll stick with this because I want a very, very light touch on this particular job. We'll see what we get. Right, so same old rules apply. Calibrate, and that's already too curved now. So we're basically calibrating our friend the mighty banana, who costeth nothing and delivereth everything, which is what maketh it mighty. The mighty banana. And look, this is the bit that the banana can't do, which the katana does. But the banana, oh look, the banana. I've had to prop the string out of the way. And just look how much trouble that's cost me, time and effort. Oh well. Now, what is true for the physics minding amongst all of us is that what's true is that having slacked off one of the strings, I have marginally, very slightly changed the loading on the neck. It's true, okay? And if it were a showstopper, I would stop the show and admit defeat and give up. But it doesn't clearly stop the show, and on we go. And it's always worked out and done a good job despite that. So yes, it's fractionally different, but 150 bucks different. You'll be the judge of that 500 setups later. Okay, so even though this played pretty well, very well, I'm going over everything, partly because there's a little bit of wear as well on the faces of these frets. So while I'm paying attention particularly to the G track, as I would call it, I'm also getting a little side bonus here of just cleaning up some of the wear on the frets, which is not a bad thing at any time. But remember, it's not necessarily in and of itself a reason to engage in fret leveling and removing any fret metal. So it's one of those parts of this process you've got to make a judgment call. Cleaning the fret faces in this instance is a side benefit. Tiny little bit more. Let's just calibrate this to make sure it's on the mark. As I've said trillions of times before doing this, recommend you recalibrate often rather than less often. There's absolutely no harm at all in stopping and just double checking that your banana matches the relief curve of the neck, and do it more than less, more rather than less. And so with a guitar like this, and pretty much like everything when I use this, I would recommend that you let gravity do the bulk of the work. Now what this is showing me in terms of where it's cutting is some quite significant high frets that, even though it was playing pretty well beforehand, the significant high frets, namely that one for example and that one, they're cutting more than the others, and it's telling us that those are to some degree in the way of a clean playing action. So it is, it's doing what it should do, and it's cutting in lots of different places, not in one or two places. So I know that that's one of the ways you can tell that you've got the relief curve set just right, is that it's cutting all the way across, not all simultaneously, but there is some cutting in every part of the neck, and that's a pretty good indicator you've got the curve right. If it cuts if it cuts at both ends only, then it could be that it's too straight, the rod is too straight, and you want to recalibrate and just be very sure. If it cuts only in the middle, or more in the middle than anywhere else, you could be over curved on the banana truss rod tool, in which case you can stop and recalibrate. So whatever you do, whatever you see, stop and calibrate it. Now there's a fret here with a bit of wear on it, or a ding or something. So I'm just concentrating now. I know that these, and this is showing quite high, these two here, so, and a couple up here as well that are quite high. So I think this could be coming into the zone where that damage was getting in the way, or high frets I should say. Recalibrate and do a tiny bit more in this track, which I call this is the D track. It's funny that, you know, a lot of times some people will look at something and have made a decision in their mind that it doesn't or can't work, and you know, it isn't perfect, right? Nothing is. There is no system, not even the Plek machine, allegedly the so-called super Plek machine, but nothing's perfect. There are flaws, one of which, like I said, in turning the taking the string off to one side, we're slightly changing the tension, not massively because it's still attached either end, but it's a little bit, tiny bit different, or how it affects the neck is a tiny bit different. But this is pretty accurate, and really all you have to learn in this is how it feels and the results you get, and stick with that, you know. It's or keep practicing, because as somebody asked me today, you know, in my ebook, they asked, were there instructions how to make this truss rod tool? I said yeah, and it's simple as anything, as you can see. I don't need to even explain it, but the key thing isn't making it, it's learning to becoming familiar with how it works and what it's telling you about the condition of the frets, and that takes a bit of time, but you'll struggle to go badly wrong even on your first go, and you know, over time you will, when you practice it with this, you will definitely get it becomes a second nature, and you really, you'll get a definite feel for it and a flair for it, and it's a very elegant thing to use, as was the katana. But whereas this is elegant, the katana was elegant and expensive as well. This top half is better. Tiny bit of congestion in the middle there, so again I'm going to reposition for the G track, and I'm going to measure or recalibrate again, and then focus on this middle part here, which is something that you can tell it's playing into these high frets that we can see clearly because of the way it's cutting. So I'm now going to add a little bit more, because it's telling me we're a little bit undercurved because it's missing the middle one. I actually, if I want to get these down to make that G play, I want to get into that curve, not skim above it. And that's the subtlety of this. And you know, you might think, how, you know, you're talking in tiny amounts, he's making this up. Not at all. That little clearance that I just corrected for there will be the difference between cleaning those notes up on this G string or not. Now, anybody who's done any work with guitars or frets or anything will already know that the clearances that I'm working with here are minuscule beyond belief. I mean, the point is, if we set this up now to make this, to clean up these notes, which is what I'm intending to do, as you can see, and I get all of these notes playing, which is the intention, and when it goes back to Dill, he can play these notes and know that they've cleaned up. Tiny bit more in that middle bit. Once we get those cleaned up, if you were to put a heavier gauge strings on, it would change it again, because it's so tiny. You know, the clearances are so small, and maybe, you know, it could even change with a little bit of change in humidity or temperature, depending on where you are and stuff. So the downside of such great low actions, it has to be that we are working with the tiniest of clearances, and those tiny clearances then get snaffled quite quickly by the tiniest change in gauge, or the tiniest atmospheric change, or the tiniest temperature change. So you have to recognize that that's the downside of doing it this finely. So I'm concentrating now just the last little bit on the middle section here, where we know already from how it's cutting across the neck, we know that we've got some high frets in the middle here, and you can kind of see them, and I'm just walking around on top of them. These are the cluster of frets right here that have got in the way on this G. Now, interestingly, they're not so much a problem over on this side, but they are towards the treble side, which is what's being... See? There you go. I like it. Almost perfect. Now, I kind of expect that effort to need to be replicated for these last couple of strings because of the trend as we come towards me and the neck radius. Over the radius, it seems to be we seem to be getting a little bit higher in the middle in that little cluster, so kind of expecting to need to continue working that hard to get them all to play, but we shall see. Okay, so it's encouraging, and what you find when you use this process lots is you'll find that you're reading the signals all the way now, and that your confidence, as long as I should say it is, you find that you'll start making assessments from the very first cuts about what's happening with the neck, and as you go and gain more experience, the further you go into the leveling, you'll find that everything that happens from that point starts to very satisfyingly reconfirm your initial assessments, and so confident will you become whoops good so confident will you become in your kind of assessment of your diagnostic as you go along, that the minute something doesn't feel right, you'll stop and you'll recalibrate, because your honed instincts will start to tell you something isn't right. This isn't going in the direction it should. Your first assessment, the minute it gets contradicted, you'll say, wait a minute, I've got a problem here that isn't consistent with what normally happens. There must be some other thing wrong. And sometimes what you find is you'll discover something you couldn't know to begin with. So for example, I remember doing an acoustic guitar where I did need to do a little bit of fret leveling to get it to play the way I and the customer wanted it to play, but I was struggling. What appeared to be a patch of high frets up here wouldn't clean up. Brilliant, I'm done. Fair bit of leveling, I have to say. I mean, not a huge amount by kind of in terms of sheer volume, but it's kicked up some dust, and you can see there's some places where the dust is pronounced, but it's good. It's done exactly what it should. The results have been consistent all the way across. They've all confirmed an initial missed assessment. So the fun part now is I can get rid of these sacrificial strings, and having done service twice, at least somewhere along the way now, I think we can get rid of them for once and for all. So I'll line them up for being snipped into little pieces and put in the tin of metal recycling. What I will do is I'll get out some of these, I'll get out some different string trees here. I did recommend to Dylan that he got some tusk ones. They're about £14 or £15 a set, usually a pair I should say, and in a way if you use the lower part of the tuner post to anchor the strings here. You probably don't need the second one, but it definitely needs one for the longer pair of strings. However, I haven't ordered them, foolishly, so I could either order them and just replace them before we send back, or what I could do is just use a couple of my recycled or reclaimed ones, which basically have reclaimed from a tusk nut that I've chucked away, or finished with, or replaced I should say. And actually it's quite fun because then you've got some material you can actually make your own with a bit of dremeling and a bit of fun if you're that sad. Now, which I of course am. Now, while I'm at this, I'm going to do a couple of things. First of all, get all these strings out and lined up for binning, and then we'll get the, in a second, we'll get the new strings. Now, the good thing about this setup process is, having done this, I obviously have to reshape the frets now with my fret reprofiling tool, but once we've done that, then we only need to restring it. Watch this. We only need to restring it with the same gauge strings, and everything about the setup will return to its previous position. So it's very accurate. I don't need to fiddle once I've restrung it. There's no kind of extra. This is going all over the place. Probably I'm cutting too many at once, but I'm trying to be conscientious and dispose of metal all in one place, and plastics and paper and stuff in other places. So the problem with strings is that not just the recycling aspect of them, but when you put them in household rubbish, as you probably know, any guitarist will know, that it tears the hell out of your rubbish bags, and before you know it, everything's spilled all over the floor or outside your house, and the cats are, you know, the feral cats from the neighbourhood are in and eating everything. So some of this still goes on the floor. Anyway, so tomorrow I should have, oh no, maybe not tomorrow, the next couple of days I should have a guitar arriving from, or I can't remember where it's coming from now, but an Ibanez 7-string, brand new 7-string guitar, which a customer has asked me to convert to an extra wide 6-string, which I've done a couple of before, and it's quite good because having done a couple, I've very quickly identified the ideal bridge to enable that process. So I had seen a couple of people, a couple of sort of famous, inverted commas, YouTubers, no, not YouTubers, eBayers, who have done something, or have done quite a few conversions, one guy in particular, and the one thing he got a bit of a reputation for was for being quite not clumsy isn't the word, but making quite a ragged mess of the original bridges on these guitars. So if you think about the challenge of taking a 7-string guitar and converting it to a 6, in principle, you can just get your head around that. Okay, you've got a wide neck, you've got oh, hang on a minute, you've got a Tune-o-matic style bridge or a Strat style bridge with 7 saddles on. Oh, you've got pickups for 7 poles, so 7 rides for 7 brothers. So you can get your head around it. Well, what have I got to do? Well, I've got to somehow convert that bridge or do something to that bridge so that it runs, it holds the 6 instead of 7. Now what do? I can't just use sort of 6 of the original 7 because that will look terrible. And so what this particular guy does with his is that he kind of cuts, he sort of cuts weird grooves into the existing bridge structure, which actually functions well because he pleases his customers and he sells guitars, and customers with ultra wide hands and big fingers are very happy to be able to play, and cosmetically I don't think they're too worried. But I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and it bothered me, the idea of chopping up or hacksawing or filing grooves in everywhere. So I did a bit of research and found that Schaller makes a what they call a 3D roller bridge. And the reason they call it 3D is because not only can you set it up and down, backwards and forwards like a normal bridge, but you can also spin the little roller wheels and shift your saddles side to side. Now of course that means whatever you do in your bridge you have to kind of measure everything up and set your own, make sure everything's in the right place, or otherwise you're going to get strings closer together or out of place. But that's not actually that hard to do if you've just got a good eye and take a little bit of time. But for me it's a perfect bridge, because all I have to do, inverted commas, is I have to remove the original Strat style 7 saddle bridge, fill in the screw holes, position and mark up some post holes for my new 3D Schaller bridge, drill those, install the posts in the right place, of course, exactly the right place, that's very critical, and then I've got my 3D adjustable side to side bridge in place. And of course it's a 6-string bridge, so it's got 6 saddles. Now it needs a stop bar fitting as well, because it's designed that way. So we have a stop bar, 6-string stop bar as well. And all that happens is because I basically use the Schaller bridge to space the 6 wider, the strings from the stop bar go a little bit like that, but it's kind of, it's immaterial really. It's what they have to do, but it doesn't really make any difference. It would probably be, if you wanted to be an absolute perfectionist, it wouldn't be that hard to manufacture your own from a nice block of brass or something, and just drill your own 6 holes in the exact right position and polish them off and stuff. But there you go. But it, for sheer functionality, it doesn't bring with it any problems at all using the traditional 6 stop bar. Like I say, you get a tiny fanning of the strings behind the bridge, but that's the absolutely minimal problem. Okay, while I'm here, and it's something I would do anyway, but might as well do now because I want the masking tape I'm going to use shortly to stick really well. Sorry. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do the cleaning of the fingerboard now. That means I can also, it's kind of degreasing it temporarily, de-oiling it I should say, and it's also cleaning a lot of the remaining marker pen off the frets. This first of all cleans the frets all up prior to the polishing process, but it also helps to make the masking tape stick better on the fingerboard to protect it. Now I'll obviously clean it again once I've done the sanding, because everything's going to get a bit mucky, but we're in the right direction now. So in a sense all the real precision work is done, and this is now ready to be polished out. And I'm going to do that off camera because it's boring and you'll probably find it on a really old video. One of the things about this is that this is an original nut that came with this guitar, and I'm not, at the moment it's performing fine, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shape it a little bit because it's sticking up a little bit at the back. So I think it was a right-handed nut reused for a left-hander, so I'm going to see what it's made of very gently. tilting it back a little bit because it looks a bit odd when it stands up the other way around. Now, my principle is usually, very often, I will change the nut over, but this one was set just right from the outset, so I'm kind of reluctant to change it while it's working. I think it is a tusk, it's not plastic, it's a tusk material already, so, or what do you call it, new bone or something. So my principle tends to be, if it's A, working, and B, it's a reasonable quality material, don't over fix it if it broke. So I just wanted to reduce it down a bit so it doesn't have a kind of forward slope. Right. Okay, so the next part is to cover up with the masking tape, cover up the whole thing, fingerboard, protect it, and then do the sanding, and that's a process with 3 grades of paper. I bought some more paper. Is it in here? I've lost it. Maybe it's here somewhere. Anyway, yeah, so I'm going to mask this off and then polish off with 3 grades of paper, followed by a whole series of micro mesh, and then by the end of that it'll all be lovely and shiny. But I'm going to do that listening to the radio, and I'm going to come back at the point of restringing this and intonating, setting the intonation, because I've messed around with, obviously, with the saddles, so I want to intonate it to be sure. So see you at that point. And we're back, done. Frets leveled, polished, cleaned, everything ready to restring. So on the home stretch now. This is always a nice place to be for the setup. Not that I don't like doing it, but I'm tired, and I've been working since 9 o'clock this morning or sometime like that. Now, what have I got? When, who, 3, top 3, bottom 3, right. Yeah, long day. Doing 2 different jobs now at the moment. So, okay, so here comes the fun bit. Let's load up with nickel steel bullets. Back to front version of things here with this. Where's my A string? Here it comes. Yeah, so polishing all done, beautiful and shiny, ready to go. Get in there, and then I'm going to string it up, stretch the strings out, do the intonation, and we are done. We can go and get this one. What day is it today? It's Wednesday, isn't it? We could kind of technically, if we were all, everything went smoothly, we could get it booked in for a collection tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, on a 24-hour, but I think that's, well, it's better than leaving it into next week, but it depends on getting an invoice out in a hurry. Anyway, I've been concentrating on doing this first. The last time I paid for a Saturday delivery with Parcel Force, I have to say, I didn't get it. So, to be honest, I should have complained. But I think maybe I'll do that tonight. I paid extra for it and they completely let me down. They're very good generally, other than that. I've had a couple of times where the so-called Saturday delivery just doesn't seem to fit into the normal scheme of things. Don't know why, but anyway. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this from back to front. Right, before I do anything else, a couple of things. Right, yeah, get your head around it. Come on, wake up. Hello. So first of all, let's see what we've got in the string tree department. String trees. I mean, if we leave it till early next week, then we can presumably get some other string trees in. I've got some kind of homemade ones there, and somewhere in here, cheap string tray. I don't know why I ever bought those horrible roller things from China. It's a waste of time. We've got some of these nice sort of fendery ones, but again they require an extra hole drilling, which I'm not going to do if I'm going to replace them out anyway. So what we have in the meantime are some homemade tusk ones. Let's have a think. Let's get these old ones out first because they're horrible. So first of all, I don't think we need to anyway, so this one comes out. And let's go and put one of these in. Actually, we don't put that one in. Let's see. Let's borrow the little barrel from there anyway. Not bad for a little freebie string. I think I'm just going to leave it on one string tree, and it could be a complementary one. Right, meanwhile, let's go and get this done. So we're going to go in the bottom hole. I keep saying that, I've got to find another way of describing that process. So I'm going to get into a lot of trouble. So here I am. So what I like to do is make sure on the first turn round the held string goes over the loose string. Keep that there, and then on its way round again we'll push the held string under the loose string, so it kind of makes sure it all sits down at the bottom there. And then basically once we got to there, I'm going to snip off this excess because I don't want it kicking around getting in my eyeballs like that nearly did. Job done. Right, next. The lower hole, that's the word I'm going to use. No, it doesn't sound much better, does it? The lower, never mind, something or other. So there we go, through there. So I tend to pull back about a fret's worth and go from there, and then put tension on there, spin it round, yank that bit up, switch hands, and it's a bit of sort of, oh great, that's not what I needed to happen. Okay, damnation, I didn't want that to happen, sorry about that. That's the result of the ball getting stuck at the bottom end and then popping through. Since we're on a thick string here, we can afford to undo that. Damnation. Right, let's try that again. We go through there, up to the end, pull back one, go from there this time. So over the top, please, over the top. Underneath, and then low down, stay down. Thank you. Right. That's better. Yeah, it's always a slight threat. I used to remember it years ago when I first had my Strat, my first Strat back in the early 80s, and it used to infuriate me because forever, I don't know why, if it was just that particular guitar or that model, the ball on the string would quite often get stuck and you'd find yourself with a great extra handful of unwanted string going around the posts. Just like that, it's just done it again. I can't believe it. So there's something about this guitar that's catching me out, and of course you can't really do it in any other position than this position. So you can see it's alright, it did it just in time, but it's kind of annoying, and if it does it with the E strings you get more trouble because you don't want to be crimping them at all on their path to being done up. So on these bass strings, you can see that we're going to end up with the strings going over the saddle, sorry, the nut at what I hope will be an adequate angle to not need the string tree. A lot of Strats don't have the second one on, and so I think it can be personal, and I think maybe we'll the advantage of the easy locking things here. See, that's doing it again, that's lining up to catch me out. So we're through, back 1 fret, go from here. Yeah, with the easy lock we might be an advantage that we can avoid that second string tree, which is looks a cluttered mess really. Right, so again here the aim is to get this G string down as low as possible. That feels alright. Again, if it doesn't have enough of an angle, we can always fit another tree, because we'll buy, if we either we'll live with this one, or we'll buy a pair and we'll fit 1 or 2, or if we just can we'll buy with this one, it'll be even simpler, and we might get this ready to travel tomorrow. You never know. So let this loose enough just to let that go over the top, and then as it comes around this time, pull that up, and a combination of various fingers directing the string towards the lower part of the post, hopefully. And then up underneath the little tusk tree of strings. Right, all the way up, all the way through. Come on, back 1, and then we're away. Bend it up and push it down. That, I think, is going to work just fine, because I think it's a lot lower by default than the other one, the originals were. So while I'm here, let me just snip up these and we'll get straight on into the stretching and intonating bit. Now, I could have theoretically put that clip-on tuner out here for this part, but I've got my app, which is always capable of doing the intonation bit. So I'm going to get rid of those butterflies. They can actually, I'll keep the little barrel because that's turned out to be quite useful in that case. Put these away, out of the way, and we'll get on to stretching. Put that junk away. We're nearly there. Not long. Okay. Hey. Get you sort of falling off or something. Right. So, stretching. Get the strings and push them physically between thumb and forefinger. I'm just looking at this. I didn't oil the fingerboard on here, but it looks pretty good without it. I don't think it needs any. It's not dry. Anyway, so the stretching part is kind of a physical, you're working to get rid of the stretch, as simple as that. It isn't going to happen on its own. I've done this enough times to know that now, and some people kind of wish that it would, they could just tune it up overnight and come back in the morning and it will be stretched out. So it isn't going to happen by accident. So basically you have to do it yourself, and there's no simple way. You've got to get as much of the slack as you can out of the strings, and it takes some physical doing. And once you've done it, the good news is that providing your nut slots are clear and they're not in any danger of grabbing the strings and holding them, stopping them equalizing across the nut, providing that's true, then this will stay in tune. And the beauty of getting the string stretching done correctly and getting your nut slots done correctly is that if you get those two things right, you can actually utilize the tremolo or the vibrato system on your Strat day and night, and it will stay in tune, which people find hard to believe. Because they want to believe they're a crap system, but they're not. Okay, so a little bit more stretching, and I would recommend, as well as doing a few of these, notice I'm kind of holding the string to stop it kind of pulling and moving too much over the saddle, the nut, sorry. But once you've done a few of these, I'm careful on the high strings, because if I break this I'll have to go and get another one. Once you've done this, then some bends are a good idea. But you can hear it's pretty much in tune now. Yep. Whoa. Right, we're pretty close to that. Let's get the tuner thing up and we'll be nearly done. I'm going to get something to eat. Late hours. Right, where's my tuner? Here's my tuner. Let's talk all that talk of tuna, food. Right, so I don't know how well you can see from there, but I'm going to now do the clean tone. Right, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a screwdriver. That's what I'll need to make adjustments to the screws. What do they look like? They are fairly standard, quite good condition. Would this work with them? Yeah, okay. So, the thingying process, intonation. We want to, it's a bit clumsy because of the thing in the wrong way, but we want to tune to the pinged harmonic. Sharp. We'll just do the other ones. So what happens is if you tune to the harmonic and then fret it and it's sharp, it means it's too short. That means we need to pull the whole lot back. Now to do that I will turn it clockwise effectively. That's going to sharpen or tighten the note up. So Now what it can do is slacken it off in this case, because it's got to travel quite a long way this time. So now I'm going to pull this back quite some distance. I'm going to do the same to the others because they have to do the same. Now one of the things I'm noticing about this straight away, it's not ideal, is something about the position of this bridge is requiring these saddles to be pulled so far back that they're actually almost starting to expose the wound part of the complex, sort of wound up, built up part of the string, which you really don't want, because it's not quite over the top, but it's just getting close to where the saddle is. So not ideal. And also what's also happening is it's driving the angle straight down over the saddle, down into the, whatever that thing is called, you know, down into the hole, into the tremolo, which wouldn't really, you really wouldn't want that if and when you are operating the tremolo. You want a bit of a break angle, but this is telling me that the bridge is actually slightly in the wrong place for this neck. Probably a result of it being a Partscaster. Not good. It is where it's out of position. The other set of holes, were they closer or further back? Do you remember? I have a feeling they were. Who knows? Well, it doesn't matter. They couldn't be any other position because that's got to go where it goes. Right, Dale. We've got a slight issue here, which is now going to start to get annoying. This is really going to start to get annoying. If I can't get these back to the right amount right now, then the problem we're going to have is, at minimum, I'm going to have to take these off and cut the springs down, but I suspect that even that isn't going to be a solution, because I think this is in the wrong place. The bridge just could be too far in the wrong place, so we might never quite get there. Problem with that is it's going to cost another set of strings. What? Now this is interesting. Something wrong with that E string, as it happens, but we're just about there at the limits of intonation, and I'm kind of going to leave it there. Once in a while, somebody on the Reload Guitars website asked me this question a little while back. They had a string they could not intonate, and I said, you won't believe this, but it's the string. And I said, get rid of it, get a new one. And they did, and lo and behold, just replacing the string intonated perfectly. And it was brand new, and you couldn't straight off tell why it would be a problem, but it was. So that's what happens, and bizarrely you get a string that doesn't quite play the ball. When you get the next set, it will intonate perfectly for some strange reason that probably never understand why it will be able to explain to anyone else. But anyway, so look, here we are with new screws going in. And we will be done. So it's just one of them that's, I mean, the fact that the bridge is not in the right place, that's the first thing, because it's we are at the limits of intonation travel there. We've just about got it, but any further and we would be in trouble. But there we go, it is done. So this is going in to get wrapped up and ready to go back. So there you go, Dylan. We are another guitar done. This one, a Partscaster. Interesting in the challenge it presented. A little bit of glue detritus there. Let me just get that off. Yeah, and I would say, just as from experience, I'd say that's a odd one out string that you, next time you change it, maybe change the brand or something, get something else, and I think it will probably intonate better. But it is at the limits, and that means this is not absolutely perfect for this neck because it's a Partscaster, but it's not bad, it's pretty close. Okay, that's me done. I'm out of here for now. I'm going to go and get something to eat. Thanks for spending time with me, and see you soon for another guitar from Reload Guitars.